Rejected by the boss for bringing her child, then a millionaire CEO made a shocking move at 3 p.m. Maggie sat in her car, heart racing, eyes glued to the office building that loomed before her. The glint of sunlight off the massive glass windows cast an eerie feeling. She couldn't shake the feeling that today was going to be different, but she had no idea how much. Just moments earlier, she'd been hit with the devastating news. No kids allowed. The words echoed in her mind, each one a taller brick in the wall of her dismay. Her 5-year-old son, Caleb, had clung to her side, unaware of the battle raging in her heart. "Mommy, are you coming back?" he had asked, his innocent eyes wide with hope. Strange things happened in that place. Whispers floated around the office about peculiar occurrences, people lost in the elevator, mysterious firings that left no trace, and the CEO, Mr. Thompson, an enigmatic man, whose presence commanded both fear and admiration. He was known for his ruthless decisions, but he also saved a company with his brilliance. Today, he walked through those glass doors with an air of urgency that sent chills down everyone's spine. Rumors buzzed in the open floor, and those whispers seemed to swell like a rising tide. As the clock struck 3, the unmistakable sound of a door slamming echoed through the building. It was louder than it should have been, a blast that silenced every voice and made every set of eyes turn toward the entrance. Mr. Thompson was standing there, framed like a king, but with an expression that twisted the air around him into a taut string of tension. "Maggie!" he shouted across the room, voice booming, as if he alone held the power to change everything. The shock rippled through the crowd. Raised brows and dropped jaws, what could he possibly want with her? Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. And then, as if the air itself was crackling with suspense, he stepped closer, his gaze locking with hers. "You have a choice to make." His words hung thick in the air, magic and dread entwined, and she felt a lump in her throat. What could he want? What did he see in her that others didn't? The office was utterly still, as if time itself paused to witness the unfolding drama. The color drained from her face, heart pounding, because with each second ticking by, the possibility of hope clashed with the fear of the unknown. Would she lose everything? Or was this a lifeline thrown by an unexpected savior? Outside, the storm rolled in, dark clouds threatening as Maggie stood frozen, waiting for Mr. Thompson to reveal his shocking proposition. The world turned upside down, and yet all she felt was the overwhelming weight of that moment. Would she dare to take the leap into uncertainty? Questions swirled, and every heartbeat weighed heavy with the unknown. Maggie's heart thundered in her chest, the noise around her fading as Mr. Thompson's piercing gaze held her hostage. The hushed whispers of the office workers became a distant hum, an echo of her racing thoughts. A choice? She whispered, more to herself than to him. What kind of choice could he possibly offer that would change the course of her life? As he took another step closer, the tension thickened, an electric current pulsing in the air between them. "I know what you've been through," he said, his voice dropping into a low, intense tone. "And I want to help you." "Help me?" Maggie blinked, confusion blurring her thoughts. Was this some cruel joke? "I don't understand. You've made it clear, forget the rules." He interrupted passionately. "I'm offering you a position, a new role, one where you won't have to leave your son behind. You can work from home, manage a team remotely, it's flexible." The storm brewing outside suddenly felt less threatening compared to the whirlwind within her. She could hardly believe her ears. "But why? What's in it for you?" Suspicion crept into her voice. His reputation painted a man incapable of selflessness. She was no fool. A faint chuckle escaped him, and it softened the harshness of the moment. "You think I'm doing this out of pity?" I see potential in you, Maggie. You didn't back down when I rejected you. His eyes darkened. That says something. Maggie felt a surge of emotions, guarded hope mingled with disbelief. But I can't just think about it, he urged, cutting her off again, the authority in his tone leaving little room for argument. You need this. You want to provide for your son. And let us be honest, this company needs more people with your grit. Around them, the office buzzed with hushed excitement, eyes darting between the two, tension crackling in the atmosphere. She could feel their gaze like a weight, a moment that turned her life upside down. Was she really considering this? Leaving the constraints of her previous position to step into unknown territory with a man whose whims could be just as unpredictable? Okay, she finally replied, even her own voice surprised her. I'll consider it. But I need time. The words hung in the air, revealing the depth of her apprehension. Time? No, his voice was sharp. You have till end of the day. This opportunity won't stay open for long. A knot of anxiety twisted in her stomach. Daylight slipped from their grasp like grains of sand, and an uncomfortable sense of urgency closed in around her. There was so much at stake, not just her career, but her whole life, her son, Caleb. What would she choose? As Mr. Thompson stepped back, finished with her, the intensity lingered, his enigmatic expression suggesting he could either be her greatest ally or her worst nightmare. The buzz of the office resumed, voices rising again, but Maggie remained rooted in place, torn between fear of what the future held and the alluring promise of an unexpected chance. Outside, lightning flickered across the darkened sky as the first drops of rain began to fall, each one like a ticking clock counting down to her decision. What was she really getting into? Her heart raced, panic settling in like an unwelcome friend. The choice loomed before her. By sundown, the landscape of her life could either remain unchanged or transform into something entirely new, but only if she dared to take the plunge. Would she be brave enough to face whatever darkness lay ahead? Maggie stumbled back to her desk, her mind a whirlwind of thoughts. She hardly noticed the familiar office chatter, the clacking of keyboards fading into the background as she struggled to process Mr. Thompson's offer. What did it mean? How could she accept a role that felt like a double-edged sword? Her eyes flicked to the digital clock at the corner of her screen. 3:15 p.m. Time was slipping away, just like the sunlight waning outside. Shadows crept across the floor, mirroring the darkness coiling in her chest. She should be focusing on her work, ensuring she was doing well enough to keep her job, but all she could think about was the choice she faced. Hey, you okay? Laura, her coworker, asked, her voice laced with concern. Maggie forced a smile, though it felt stiff. Yeah, just a lot on my mind. Is it about the Thompson meeting earlier? There's some buzz flying around about it. Laura's head bobbed knowingly. What could she say? That she was wrestling with a potential life-changing decision proposed by the man notorious for ruthless behavior? No, she couldn't share that. Not with anyone. It felt too raw, too personal. Before she could respond, the storm outside intensified, slamming rain against the windows. Thunder rumbled in the distance, as if echoing the storm swirling inside her. She caught sight of Mr. Thompson through the glass. He was striding through the office, speaking with authority, his presence commanding instant obedience. A wave of fear gripped her when he glanced her way, those piercing eyes slicing through her composure. Maggie, he beckoned. The way he commanded her name made her stomach flip. She felt trapped, caught between desperation and intrigue. Coming. The whisper shocked her as it escaped her lips. She stood, her legs shaky, as she approached his office, a space that felt both inviting and threatening. Shut the door, he instructed, his tone clipped yet smooth. The sound of the door clicking shut sent a wave of apprehension through her. Now they were alone, and the air thickened with expectation. Have you thought it over? He asked, arms crossed as if he were assessing her worth. As she hesitated, I need more time. His gaze hardened for a fleeting moment. You don't have time, Maggie. This is a business. My business, he corrected himself, stepping closer, invading her space. She could sense the undeniable pressure to make a choice, to take the plunge. He continued, Consider this: what happens if you turn this down? Your current situation, as you know, isn't stable. Do you really want to gamble with your son's future? The words landed like heavy stones in her stomach. For a brief moment, the weight of her reality collided with his offer in horrid clarity. She thought of Caleb, his smile, how he depended on her. Could she risk it all for a chance at something different? Your son shouldn't have to pay for adult choices. You can make this work. Be there for him. The sincerity in his voice was unsettling. Was it compassion or merely a tactic to manipulate her? Unable to hold back, she blurted out, "What's your end game here? Why do you care about me?" For the first time, a flicker of vulnerability crossed his face. "Because I see someone worth fighting for. Your courage in the face of rejection, that's rare. And it intrigues me." She felt her heart race in response, a mixture of fear and allure. "But what does that mean for me?" "Everything," he replied, his voice low and intense. "Cash bonuses, flexible hours, and an opportunity to work directly with me if you're brave enough to take it." As the rain poured heavily against the window, Maggie's mind spiraled. Would she be diving into darkness or stepping into the light? Outside, lightning struck, illuminating the office as fear and desire warred within her. Maggie stood at a crossroads, and the decision felt heavier than the storm brewing outside. Could she trust him? Or was this a trap waiting to ensnare her? And then, the chilling question echoed in her mind. What had she really gotten herself into? Thunder crashed again, as though signaling the dramatic conclusion of one chapter and the beginning of another. Time was running out. Would she run or stay and fight? Maggie felt a dizzying combination of exhilaration and dread fluttering in her stomach. Her heart thudded in her chest as she searched Mr. Thompson's face for signs of deceit. He was close now, his familiar scent a blend of cedarwood, and something sharp clouded her senses. The temptation to accept his offer whispered sweetly, but the fear of the unknown clawed at her mind. What if this was a mistake? What if he was just playing with her emotions? Before she could form a coherent thought, the lights flickered, casting ominous shadows against the walls. The storm outside raged on, clapping thunder like an angry audience. She blinked at Mr. Thompson, his expression unwavering, his intention hidden under that inscrutable facade. "Just think, Maggie," he said, sliding his hands into his pockets. "You've got a chance for stability. That's not something you can afford to dismiss." Stability. The word echoed painfully. Caleb's laughter resonated in her memory, his innocent dreams relying on her ability to provide. Her decision could steer their lives onto a more solid path. "But at what cost? What do you want from me?" she said abruptly. "You're not known for your friendly demeanor." He chuckled, the sound dry and devoid of warmth. "I want someone who can bring fresh ideas, someone who can think outside the box. Your background? It's impressive. You're smarter than they give you credit for." Flashbacks flooded her mind, her early days in the firm, the constant side eyes from her peers, the whispers about her being just a single mom. She had fought hard to prove herself, to rise above the labels. Yet here stood a man who held both power and the potential for salvation. Was she willing to risk it all for a puzzle wrapped in mystery? As if sensing her conflict, Mr. Thompson leaned in, his voice a conspiratorial whisper. "Join me and I promise you'll have influence. You can make waves. Finally break free from the constraints they've put on you." The glimmer in his eyes sparked something primal within her. Acknowledge her struggle. He'd done it. Felt like a reckoning. Influence? She echoed, feeling the weight of the word. What would that look like? His gaze intensified, and Maggie caught a glimpse of ambition igniting within him. Imagine a world where your ideas matter, where you don't just follow orders but set them. You can lift your family out of the shadows of this corporate abyss. The tumultuous storm matched the chaos of her thinking. Lightning sliced the sky, revealing the unmistakable shadow of her past and the weight of her choices. "Before you decide, think about this," he continued, his voice soft but pressing. "What if taking this leap means you're finally free?" But what did freedom entail? The risks were all-consuming: her reputation, her son, and the gnawing doubt in her gut. "Maggie!" Laura's voice cut through the tension. Her form appeared in the doorway, concern etching her features. Behind her, a few co-workers loitered, casting furtive glances at the closed door. Maggie felt trapped, both by circumstances and by her own uncertainty. She had never been one to shy away from confrontation, yet this felt different. A choice that wasn't just hers alone. "Excuse me," she said to Mr. Thompson, backing away. "Think about it, Maggie," he urged. "You have until the end of the week." With shaking hands, she opened the door, only to be met by curious eyes peering into the dim office. "Are you all right?" Laura asked, her voice a low whisper. Maggie couldn't answer. The weight of Mr. Thompson's proposition hung heavily on her shoulders. "Just give me a moment," she replied, stepping into the noise of the office, the chaos filing into her thoughts as she returned to her desk. The storm outside began to subside, leaving behind a murky silence punctuated only by the sound of dripping rain. What had she uncovered? A path glowing with hazards but also potential rewards. And just as she settled back in, an urgent message pinged on her phone. The screen lit up with a name that sent chills creeping down her spine. It was Caleb asking something she never thought. "GDC. Mama, are you leaving the office with Mr. Thompson tonight?" The burning question lingered in the air. And in that moment, Maggie's heart raced with an unsettling truth. Could this really be happening? Would she forge ahead? Or would the specter of her past paralyze her once more? Maggie's fingers danced nervously over her phone screen as she reread Caleb's message. Panic mingled with confusion, knotting her stomach. She didn't want him to think she was stepping into some dark place, selling out for the sake of a paycheck. But the truth was already bound up in a secret she couldn't share with her son. "Mama," the way he'd written it struck a chord, sending a fresh wave of doubt crashing over her. The cut of his innocent request felt like ice on fire. Unbidden, her mind wove a tapestry of fears. What if Mr. Thompson lured her into a world where she lost sight of everything she held dear? "Hey, Maggie?" Laura's concerned voice broke through her thoughts again. "You okay?" The others glanced at her, the curiosity of her colleagues simmering like an impending storm. She felt the weight of scrutiny, the kind of attention that made every heartbeat thunder in her ears. "I am," she started, but it came out more like a defeat. She looked up, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Just tired." Laura's brow furrowed, knowing better. "You know I'm here if you want to talk." "Thanks," Maggie replied, her throat tight. She wanted to spill everything to her friend, but the consequences were too vast, like an ocean ready to swallow her whole. Instead, she turned her focus back to her screen, typing a quick response to Caleb. "I'll be home soon. Just got caught up. Love you." As soon as she hit send, another ping jolted her. "Get out of there, Mom." The text from Caleb arrived almost instantaneously, as if he sensed her internal struggle. "Please?" What did he think he knew? Her heart sank. Could he feel her indecision? The fear? She was the one meant to protect him, not the other way around. Before she could react, a shadow loomed over her desk. Maggie looked up to find Jennifer, the steely HR manager, regarding her with an unreadable expression. "We need to talk," she said, the words clipped and serious. "Is this about the reports?" Maggie asked, a corner of her mind racing toward her recent performance review. "No, it's about Mr. Thompson." Every nerve in Maggie's body tensed as she leaned slightly back in her chair. Whatever the outcome of this discussion might be, she could feel it would tip the scales in her favor or plunge her into chaos. "What about him?" she asked, feigning innocence that felt painfully frail. Jennifer hesitated, then took a deep breath. "I overheard some chatter during the brainstorming session yesterday. He was looking for people to help him on some unconventional projects. Your name kept coming up." Maggie felt her heart pound. Why brings this up now? Word travels fast around here. "I'm not telling you to take the offer or anything, but I felt you should know what's being said. Could lead to either great success or deep trouble." Her pulse quickened. Unconventional. The word vibrated in her mind like a warning bell. What kind of projects? More importantly, what kind of life was she willing to gamble for a taste of power? The choice rested on a precarious edge. "Thanks, Jennifer," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. But inside, a wild tempest raged. "Just be careful," Jennifer warned. "Don't let ambition blind you. You know what this place can do to you." The words hit hard. A chill crept back into Maggie's core as the storm outside began to roar again. The clouds darkened ominously, and she realized time was slipping through her fingers like sand. Once again, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, her heart stopping mid-beat. Another text from Caleb flooded her with dread. "Mom, is Mr. Thompson the reason you 1T come home?" Tears threatened to brim. How much longer could she hold onto that facade? The one that said everything was fine. How could she choose the right path when each step seemed to lead her deeper into a labyrinth of uncertainty? Maggie's breath quickened. She couldn't face another decision this heavy. What if she chose wrong? A phone call rang out in the office, piercing through the dead air. But this was no ordinary call. It was a call she knew could change everything. "Maggie, don't you see?" Mr. Thompson's voice disrupted her thoughts in her mind, echoing reminders of sweetness, seduction, potential. "You need to decide before it's too late." And deep down, she feared he was right. Across the room, the buzzing of her phone escalated a reminder of Caleb's innocent inquiry, but an email alert just appeared on her screen. A new message from Mr. Thompson, its subject line stark and demanding, "Meeting tonight." Was this the moment everything would tilt? Maggie's heart raced. Would she now succumb to the shadows she had fought to escape, or step into a light so bright it blinded? Before she could decipher that truth, a realization sparked a new dread. What price would she pay if she walked through that door tonight? The storm hadn't passed. It was just beginning. Maggie's hands trembled as she stared at the email from Mr. Thompson, the cursor blinking, urging her to click and reveal whatever awaited her on the other side. The sound of rain lashing against the window matched the turbulent thoughts swirling in her head. Every drop felt like a beating drum, summoning the chaos she tried so hard to bury deep inside. Her breath caught as another message flashed across her phone, the familiar face of Laura just a few feet away, brows stitched with worry. "You sure you want to stay? We can just leave." If the words trailed off, and Maggie knew her friend was standing on shaky ground. Laura had seen the shadow creep over Maggie's features. "I'll be fine," Maggie insisted, the false confidence crumbling shortly after she said it. She couldn't unravel the truth before everyone. "Not now, not here." "Be careful, Maggie," Laura replied softly, concern etched in every line of her face. Maggie gave a weak nod, feeling her resolve quiver. The moment she glanced back at her phone, she felt the world tilt even further. Caleb's name loomed above, and urgency edged its way into her thoughts. If her boy was sensing something off, she had to act. "I'll call you later," she texted back, forcing each letter through a throat constricted by doubt and fear. Just a long day at work. As she took a deep breath, accepting the chaotic air around her, Maggie rose from her chair, the clinking sound of her keys jolting her from the noise. It was time to confront the looming shadow, to step over the threshold into the uncertainty that lay ahead. "Are you sure about this?" Laura asked, her hand lightly gripping Maggie's arm. "What choice do I have?" Maggie whispered, trying to keep her voice steady. She could feel the tension sizzling between them, but Maggie had made her choice. Crossing the hallway, each step felt like a countdown, like the heavy wing beats of a vulture above. The office lights flickered as if sensing her dread. Mr. Thompson's office was at the end, its door ajar, a sliver of a storm brewing just beyond. She paused, steeling herself before stepping through. The space was darkened, the blinds mostly drawn, but she could make out the silhouette of Mr. Thompson leaning over a large desk. The faint glow from a computer screen painted an eerie light across his profile, casting shadows that danced like demons around him. "Maggie." His voice was smooth, but there was an edge to it. "I wondered when you'd come. What did you need to discuss?" She gathered courage in the silence, acutely aware of the danger that hung in the air like an electric current. He gestured toward a chair across from him. An unsettling smile curled on his lips. "Take a seat." Maggie hesitated, her instincts screaming against the very idea. "I'd prefer to stand." He chuckled softly, leaning back as if savoring the moment, a wolf regarding a cornered rabbit. Suit yourself. I wanted to speak with you about those unconventional projects I mentioned. Her heart raced. That word, unconventional, carried weight far beyond its meaning. It hinted at dark corners and risky ventures and ambiguity that sent chills spiraling down her spine. I heard you've shared some interesting ideas, he continued, his tone shifting, the casualness dripping with insinuation. Ideas I think would flourish under the right guidance with the right resources. Resources? She echoed, feeling her stomach twist. Think of it as an expansion of your potential, he said, narrowing the space between them. But it requires a commitment. There are opportunities here, Maggie, but they come with challenges. The storm shaking outside matched the tempest raging within her. Decisions had consequences, and she felt the weight of Caleb's warning drumming in her ears. Challenges? She murmured, her throat dry. Nothing you can't handle. We just need the right alignment between ambition and a willingness to push limits. He leaned forward, eyes glistening. You've always had the spark. I can help fan the flame. Maggie recoiled slightly yet stood her ground. I'm not here to toy with flames. I need to think about my family too. Oh, I'm well aware of your family's involvement. That's why this can become more than just a project. It could be a legacy, he said smoothly. The pit in her stomach deepened. I have my priorities, she whispered defiantly. But the tremor in her voice belied her confidence. Exactly. And Caleb, well, he'd understand that this is about securing a future. A chill slid down her spine, his knowing smile unsettling her resolve. I'll give you until the end of the day to think it over. But don't take too long. Opportunities like this don't wait. As she walked out of the office, the shadow behind her felt heavier than ever. Each step echoed in the growing silence of the office, leaving her breathless as doubts surged inside. What choice would she make? Was she prepared to gamble everything to chase after a fleeting promise held in the dark? Back at her desk, the storm raged outside, but it was nothing compared to the storm brewing inside her mind. Time was running out. She glared at her phone, and the seconds ticked on like a countdown. And then, before she could process it, another message lit up her screen, the innocent words of Caleb sending her into dizzying turmoil. Mom, I need you to promise me something. Don't say yes to anything without talking to me first. A shiver crept through her. Was it a warning or a plea? Maggie stared out the window, watching the lightning flash across the sky. The clouds rolled, threatening to burst. A decision loomed. She could feel it like a pulse in the air. Would she risk it all, plunging into the choices that could very well lead to an abyss, or would she find a way to protect her family? The clock ticked away, marking time toward a destiny she didn't yet understand. Maggie clenched her phone, its edges biting into her palm as she read Caleb's message again. Doubt swept over her like a thick fog. He was just a kid. How could he understand the pressures of the real world? How could he know the lengths a mother would go to protect her family? But as she stared into the stormy sky, Caleb's words felt like a lifeline, urging her back from the edge. A chair skidded across the floor, jolting her from her thoughts. Laura was peering at her, eyes wide with concern. What's wrong? You're paler than usual. Maggie swallowed hard, forcing a shaky smile. It's just work stuff. Laura's brow furrowed. You don't look fine. You look like you're about to make the biggest mistake of your life. She knew Laura meant well, but the weight of uncertainty crushed down on her. Just give me a moment, she replied, moving toward the window. The rain hammered against the glass, each drop a reminder of the choices she faced. She could hear the echo of Mr. Thompson's voice, the undertones of danger and opportunity intertwined as the storm outside intensified. So did the chaos brewing within. She had to get her thoughts straight. A wild idea sprang to mind. What if she went to Caleb's school and talked to him directly? She needed clarity, and there was no better place to find it than with the boy who brought her joy in the midst of turmoil. Hey, Laura, Maggie called out, an unusual determination fluttering in her chest. I think I'm going to pick Caleb up from school. Laura's eyes sharpened. Is that a good idea? You know Thompson's deadline is looming. What if I don't care? Maggie interrupted, her voice rising. I need to talk to my son. Right now, he's my priority. Without waiting for a response, Maggie grabbed her bag and stepped outside. The rain felt cool against her skin, washing away the tension, if only for a moment. As she drove through the storm, snippets of conversation swirled in her mind. The whispers of doubt morphed into echoes of resolve. She reached for her phone, contemplating whether to text Caleb and ease his mind. But the rain was loud, and the road was treacherous. No distractions now. The school loomed ahead, a looming fortress of faded brick and swirling leaves. As she pulled into the parking lot, a knot tightened in her stomach. The weather had stripped down any sense of normalcy, morphing the familiar into something foreboding. She dashed into the building, dodging droplets and slipping through the double doors. The dull hum of students mingled with announcements on the loudspeaker. Heart-pounding, she followed the signs to the classroom. In front of the door, she paused, anxiety coiling like a spring. What if he didn't understand? What if he felt torn, caught between her world and the dangerous one she was balancing on the edge of? Still, the thought of leaving him in the dark was unbearable. She pushed the door open, scanning the room filled with colorful posters and bright-eyed children. Her heart clenched as she caught sight of Caleb, playing a game with friends. His laughter rang out like a melody that made her almost forget the chaos outside. "Mama!" he exclaimed, racing over to her. Magenta ink from his art project smeared his cheek, but he was radiant, a beam of light cutting through her dismal clouds. "Hey, buddy," she said, bending to hug him fiercely. "What are you doing here?" he asked, wide-eyed, a hint of worry flashing through his innocence. She brushed his hair back, faking a lightness she didn't quite feel. "I just wanted to see you. How's everything?" "Good," he grinned. "Except we had to finish our projects. Mine's about superheroes." His enthusiasm broke through her defenses, warming her heart. Before she could respond, a sound broke her moment. The door swung open behind her, and in walked Mr. Thompson. He didn't look pleased. "Maggie." His voice cut through the joyful atmosphere like a knife. "I didn't expect to see you here." She straightened, keeping one hand protective over Caleb's shoulder. "I'm just checking on my son." His gaze narrowed, calculating. The deadline for the project isn't that what I'm here to discuss?" She interrupted, stepping forward, her determination rising again. "Maybe I want to rethink my options? Or just run away when the real work begins?" His words dripped with implication, and the room felt hostile now. Caleb's eyes darted between them, sensing the tension. "Mom?" Catching the question in his voice, an icy dread filled Maggie's chest. She had backed herself into a corner. Was this the legacy Mr. Thompson spoke of? Just a conversation? She snapped, her heart racing. "I just want the best for my family." Thompson smirked, leaning slightly closer. "And what do you think is best, Maggie?" The storm raged outside, but inside, Maggie felt the tempest of her future collide within. Her voice faltered. "I need time to think." "Time can be a dangerous thing," he replied smoothly, studying her as if she were a puzzle to solve. As he stepped back, a fiery resolve ignited within her. She wasn't just another pawn in his game. "Then I'll take my time," Maggie declared, voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through her. Showing him weakness was not an option anymore. With a glance to Caleb, whose wide eyes mirrored her own hope and fear, she realized that she had a choice to make. But little did she know that the storm wasn't just outside, it was building within the very walls of the school in that moment. An unanticipated sound echoed down the hall. A flood of shouting and chaos. A panicked mass that rushed toward them. What was happening? Was this the moment her life would shatter? Or could it somehow bind her family even tighter? The hall erupted into chaos as students surged toward the exits, their screams shattering the air like glass. Maggie's heart raced, fear clawing at her throat. She tightened her grip on Caleb as the boy pressed his face against her side. Confusion knitted into his brow. "What's going on?" he whispered, eyes darting from her to the other children. "I don't know, sweetheart," Though the words felt flimsy, she forced a calmness into her voice. Inside her, panic roiled like the storm outside. Mr. Thompson's demeanor shifted, tension coiling around him. Stay here. I'll find out what's happening. He turned sharply and bolted out of the classroom, leaving the door ajar. Mom! Caleb whimpered, clutching her dress as the noise outside grew louder, more frantic. I don't want to stay here. Maggie knelt down, forcing herself to meet his wide, terrified gaze. It's all right, baby. I'm right here. But the words felt hollow, the truth gnawing at her insides. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the hallway, and a chilling silence followed so profound it made her ears ring. Gasps replaced the howling as students huddled closer. What was that? Caleb asked, his breath quickening. The walls seemed to close in on them. She wanted to scream, to rally the other parents, to throw open the door like a warrior charging against the fear. But the weight of uncertainty held her in place. Through the chatter of voices outside, she could just make out a muffled announcement blaring from the loudspeakers. Attention, everyone. Remain calm and stay in your classrooms. I repeat, remain calm. Maggie muttered, her heart pounding harder. The word felt like a cruel joke given the pandemonium swelling outside. What if it's a drill? Caleb's voice trembled. Maggie cupped his cheek, warmth clashing against the chill of the storm. Let us hope that's all it is. Still, as she spoke, shadows danced in her mind, whispering of fragility, memories of her life unraveling too easily. Like a thread pulled from a sweater, too taut to hold. A group of teachers rushed past, their faces pale, eyes wide with concern. It was the frantic energy in their movements that made Maggie's stomach churn. They weren't just leading students to safety. They were evacuating, and she couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible loomed. Mom, I'm scared. Caleb's tiny voice pulled her back. I know. Just stay close to me. The words fell from her lips as a promise, but deep down, she felt hopeless. A sudden burst of noise erupted from outside, a cacophony of shouting, the screech of tires, a metallic clang. Maggie's breath hitched. Were they in danger? Did the storm inside the walls of the school match the storm outside? Just then, Maggie noticed motion in the hallway. Mr. Thompson reappeared, flanked by two other teachers, urgency written across their features. Follow me, he barked. We need to clear the building. Fear ignited within her, and she wrapped an arm protectively around Caleb's shoulders. They were already in a maze. But where do we go? Out the back entrance. He turned, his voice cutting through the chaos. Now, no, Maggie shouted, a sudden wave of defiance washing over her. We can't just leave with all this chaos. Caleb, she hesitated, seeing the glimmer of uncertainty flicker across Thompson's face. Greg, call for backup. Reinforce lockdown immediately. He glanced back at her, jaw tense. I'll explain later. We're running out of time. Caleb squeezed her hand tightly. Mom, let us go. At that moment, instinct took over, pushing away her worries. The protective mother kicked in, urging her forward. She nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. Okay, we'll follow him. They stepped into the chaos outside, the world swirling in disarray. As she moved, she felt eyes on her, judgment and concern blending into one. The storm roared on, but chaos filled every inch of the hall. Maggie cast one last glance back into the classroom, her breath catching. What awaited them beyond these walls? Then, without warning, a shout rang out, a piercing cry that sliced through the air. Stop! Don't! She froze, heart pounding, realizing they were moments away from crossing unseen lines, facing the unthinkable. You can't save everyone, Maggie. The words rang in her head, words that chilled her veins, echoing the haunting voice of Mr. Thompson. And in that split second, she understood. This wasn't just chaos, it was a choice, a line drawn in the sand. What would happen next? Would she risk everything once again, or would her world fracture beyond repair? Even as she moved forward, the heavy weight of fate loomed closer, threatening to pull her into darkness. Maggie's mind spun, tangled in a web of fear and uncertainty. The piercing shout echoed like a gunshot in her ears. Everything seemed to freeze, each second stretching out, heavy with dread. Had they crossed the line? What awaited them outside the sanctuary of this classroom? Mom! Caleb's tiny hand held onto her tighter, his innocent face reflecting raw terror. What's happening? She forced a smile, though her insides churned and twisted. I don't know, but we're going to be okay. She wished so desperately for her words to be truthful. The metallic taste of panic had flooded her mouth, leaving a bitter reminder of the risk. Suddenly, Mr. Thompson's voice broke through the tension. We need to move now. It's imperative. His urgency was palpable, the vein in his neck pulsing visibly. He stepped back, scanning the corridor as if it held answers that he was desperate to discover. Maggie hesitated, glancing at Caleb, who looked up at her, searching her expression for assurance. They both knew instinctively this was bigger than school drills and storms outside. She swallowed hard, fighting the fear bubbling just below the surface. She stepped forward. Mr. Thompson, we can't abandon everyone else. Her voice was firmer than she felt. There's no time. We have to prioritize getting the younger kids out first. He shot back, his eyes fierce. Do you really think we can wait? This could all escalate. We can't risk that. She recognized the truth in his words, yet couldn't shake the sense of helplessness. How could she choose to leave, knowing the chaos behind them was rising like a tide? Then, amid the madness, a scream pierced the air. The sound was raw, like an animal in agony, and it echoed through the hall, sending a jolt of adrenaline through Maggie's veins. Caleb flinched at the noise, burying his face against her and tightening his grip. Maggie, we need to go, Thompson asserted again, rubbing his hands against his temples as if he were fighting off a headache. Her instinct as a mother warred with her thoughts of what was happening around them. The fear was tangible, almost a living entity, and it wrapped its fingers around Maggie's throat, choking her reason. A flash of movement caught her eye. Outside the cracked door, something dark flickered in the storm's shadow, a figure, hunched over, darting erratically. It disappeared into a nearby room with a sudden force, creating an unsettling juxtaposition against the earlier surging chaos. What was that? Caleb whimpered, his voice trembling. Maggie turned, wide-eyed, to Mr. Thompson. Did you see that? He nodded grimly, tension tight across his face. Whatever it is, it's not safe. We have to move. If you want to head to the back entrance, we can't wait much longer. In her gut, she felt the tremors of dread. Should she turn back, facing the mystery and chaos behind, or press ahead into the unknown? She took a deep breath, seeing the fear reflected in her son's eyes again. Caleb, she whispered, we need to stick together. They were seconds from a decision. The chaos that surrounded them was both unreachable and suffocating, an ocean full of swirling fears and panic. The muffled announcements continued, becoming a haunting soundtrack to their lives. Remain calm, stay inside. Positions were becoming defined, and soon it would be too late to turn back. Were they racing toward safety, or toward the very horror that the school had promised to protect them from? She couldn't shake the feeling that whatever lay ahead was more significant than their immediate fears. Maggie clenched Caleb close, ready to run, when another sound shattered the air. A sharp crack, like a whip, and then the sound of footsteps, heavy, deliberate. In that moment of breathless silence, she understood whatever was following them now was waiting, watching, ready to strike. Mom! Caleb cried, terror lacing his voice. They were losing precious time. Go! She shouted, shoving forward, heart racing as she led Caleb down the darkened corridor, where shadows seemed to twist and turn. Each step felt like a descent into uncharted territory, and in the fragile balance of the moment, she realized they might not survive whatever awaited them. As they reached the corner, the cacophony escalated, everything around them both familiar and alien. What would they encounter just ahead? Would they discover the truth hidden in the storm? As they ran, she felt the darkness creeping ever closer. Maggie's heart raced as she dragged Caleb along, the terror spilling into the air around them like an electric haze. The storm outside roared back to life, a savage beast chasing after them as they stumbled through the chaotic hallways. The screams echoed like distant thunder, shaking her to the core. There was no turning back. "We need to find a place to hide," she shouted over the cacophony, her voice fighting to be heard above the chaos. Fear clenched at her heart like a vice, and she tightened her grip on her son's hand. They darted past classrooms, each door closed tight against the turmoil, a stark reminder of the chaos swirling around them. "Mom, I'm scared." Caleb's voice trembled, tears welling in his eyes. In the storm of uncertainty, she felt his fear wrap around her, pulling her deeper into the fray. "I know, sweetheart. I'm right here. Just keep holding on," she replied, forcing courage into her voice. Every instinct screamed at her to protect him, to shield him from whatever horror lay ahead. But could she? They rounded a corner, and her heart stumbled. Up ahead, Mr. Thompson stood, defiance written across his tense features. A thrumming urgency pulsed in the air between them. "This way," he signaled, his voice a sharp command. "What is happening?" Maggie shouted, frustration mixed with fear coursing through her veins. "Where do we go?" "The safer to stick together. There's an exit through the gym." His eyes flickered toward her son, a hint of something in his gaze, concern, or something darker. Swallowing her misgivings, she nodded, edging closer. "Caleb, hold tight." They surged forward, his little legs struggling to keep pace. The crowd pressed in around them, a tide of terror threatening to sweep them away as they barreled toward the gym. The air crackled with energy, and instinctively, Maggie felt her protective nature surge. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from behind, a door splintering under some dismissive force. Heart climbing into her throat, she bolted faster, desperate to reach the sanctuary before it was too late. "Mom," Caleb whined, his voice thin and strained. They were losing time. With one last push, they entered the gym, the echo of their footsteps mingling with shouts from outside. The room was empty and bathed in a strange blue light filtering through grimy windows. "Mama, I don't like this," Caleb whimpered, clinging to her skirt. "Stay quiet, Caleb. We need to hide." They ducked behind a stack of gym mats, the faint smell of sweat and dust infiltrating her senses. Heart pounding in her ears, she peered out toward the gym door. Rash footsteps grazed the floor, and she held her breath, praying it wasn't whatever danger loomed behind them. "Maggie!" Mr. Thompson's voice broke through her fog. His silhouette loomed near the entrance, tension radiating from him like heat from a fire. "We don't have much time. We need to move." "Where?" She shot back, fear cascading through her. "What's happening? What are we running from?" "You need to trust me," he replied, frustration lining his features. "Just follow my lead. I'll make sure you and Caleb are safe." The uncertainty flickering in his gaze made her want to recoil, but under the chaos, she recognized a glimmer of truth. He was a man who walked a fine line between darkness and light. "I can't let anything happen to my son," she murmured, her voice steady with resolve. "Then do what I say." The fear clawed at her insides, entirely consuming. "You're asking me to make the most significant decision of my life, and it might be the only choice to save him." Bitterness mixed with anger threatened to take hold. Yet deep down, she knew he was right. To remain was to risk everything they had. But would running with Thompson lead them to safety or straight into the nightmare? Suddenly, the door burst open, revealing the ghostly figure from earlier. Its eyes gleamed with malicious intent, sending a primal terror surging through Maggie. "Run!" she screamed. They scrambled out from behind the mats as chaos exploded. Shadows coalesced, and Maggie grabbed Caleb's hand tightly. "Stick close." They darted, past Thompson into the hallway, the storm of mantled fear pursuing them. Cries and confusion were a backdrop to their hurried escape, the sense of dread closing in with each passing second. Maggie's feet pounded down the corridor, following Thompson's lead. "Where now?" she shouted, panic spiking in her voice. "Classroom 305. It's where we can barricade ourselves." They reached the classroom, sliding inside just before the storm of chaos swept closer. "Lock it," he commanded. "Now." Maggie felt the adrenaline coursing through her as she pushed the lock down, securing their temporary sanctuary. The room seemed to close around them, the walls lined with desks that felt like a cage. Caleb pressed against her, his little body trembling as the noise rattled outside the thin door. "Mom?" His eyes shone with tears once more. "Shoo! Baby, I've got you," she whispered, wrapping her arms around him tightly. She could hardly breathe, the suffocating weight of uncertainty threatening to crush her. Mr. Thompson moved to the door, peering through the small window. Anxiety gripped him as shadows flitted past. "We need to hold out. Just a little longer," he whispered, barely loud enough for them to hear. Silence enveloped the room like a shroud as time ticked agonizingly slow. Every echo sent a fresh wave of dread crashing through her. They huddled together, the warmth of Caleb offering a fragile comfort against the overwhelming fear of potential chaos. "Mom, are we safe?" Caleb asked, his voice small and fragile. "Just hold on," she replied, in a voice steadied by a need for hope. "We'll be all right. Promise." But Maggie knew promises could wither under the weight of consequences. She glanced at Thompson, grappling for answers. Could he navigate them into safety? Would his path lead them back into the storm or into the light where they belonged? The voices outside began to dull, one by one, the rest of the world falling into shadows as they remained crammed into a single haunting space. The weight of choices made and unmade seeped into her bones. Moments stretched, dragging through grim silence. In this stillness, Maggie realized something vital. She would fight not just for safety, but for the life she wanted for her son, against all odds. Whatever shadows lay ahead, she would see them through. But first, they had to survive whatever darkness lurked beyond that closed door. And as the storm raged on, deep down, she felt the strength of her resolve igniting slowly, a hope that pulsed right along with the heartbeat of survival. The door rattled suddenly, chaos greeting them once again, and it was time to face it head-on. "Mom, what is happening?" Caleb whimpered. Maggie knelt down, looking at him with fierce determination. "Whatever comes next, we face it together. I love you, Caleb. You hear me?" This moment was theirs to seize. Together. Caleb nodded fiercely, and at that moment, Maggie knew. This storm would pass, they would overcome. Whatever awaited them, they were ready. It was time. They would push through the chaos, stepping into the light together once more. Soaring above the din that filled the air, a spark of bravery ignited within her as they prepared for what would soon break free. The storm raged on outside, but their fate was theirs to shape. This was the moment of truth, and they would rise against the torrent, together. As the door swung open, darkness stirred, but Maggie refused to flinch. They would step boldly into whatever it brought, unafraid, unwavering, united. This is it, my friends. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that could be even more thrilling than this one. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and support the content you love. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let us know in the comments what you thought of Maggie's journey and your theories on where she goes from here. Your participation means everything.